Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for staying with us until the end of this afternoon. We've obviously gone way beyond the time that we had scheduled, but this is a very eminent panel. We're very happy to have with us here some very respected members of our community and of communities related to the work that we do. The information what you've just seen from the video message of the Envoy on technology from the UN, Mr. Gill, he places this topic of knowledge commons or data commons in the context of the Global Digital Compact, which is a call to action to work towards an inclusive, open, sustainable, safe, and secure digital future for all. So that is the topic we're going to talk about. I will introduce the speakers when I start posing the question. I'll do it just very shortly to understand for you who we have here with us tonight. We have from the far right, it's Guha. He is he's the principal scientist of Google.org and works with us. We're very fortunate to have him and his team work with us at the UN on the UN Data Commons. We have with us here the director of the Data Science Campus of the Office for National Statistics of the UK, Mr. Osama Rahman. And we've been working with him on the Data Science Leaders Network within the context of the work that we do here with our committee of experts. We also have with us here Haishan. She's chief statistician of the World Bank and for the within the international community, very well respected and a person we work with a lot. And then finally, right next to me, Ferdinando, who is a professor here with the Basque Center for Climate Change and works on the artificial intelligence for environmental sustainability. We will hear a little bit about that. It will be a bit of a rush session, and I apologize for that. One good thing is that all 4 of our members will also be in sessions here tomorrow or the day after. I think there they will have more opportunity, more time to speak. What you saw, and I continue from this video message, is that data commons can play an important role for environmental sustainability by pooling data resources, expertise, and infrastructure, which can help researchers finding solutions for the green transition. And then Mr. Gill encourages our panel members to address the following points, and that's where I will ask some questions about. One is the potential benefits and opportunities of fostering the creation of knowledge commons as a means of enabling collaboration and partnerships around the production, the sharing, and the use of data, of information, and of knowledge to address global sustainable development challenges. Also to address the various dimensions of data governance, the importance of multi-stakeholder engagement, and how we could contribute to the vision of an open, free, secure, and sustainable digital future. So I will start my first question with Ferdinando, right next to me here. And my question for Ferdinando is regarding the building of a knowledge commons. So the Basque Center for Climate Change explicitly likes to build a knowledge commons on the topic of environmental sustainability. So can you explain a little bit what the objectives are of RES for SIA and how it tries to build a knowledge common? How can knowledge commons facilitate the sharing of scientific data and information to inform policy decisions and foster global cooperation.
Sure.
Ferdinando.
Thank you, Ronald. I could take this from any level, from very close to the goals of the conference or from very far away. But I would like to start by saying that the world has become far too complex for the models we use to navigate knowledge today. And the questions that face decision makers and statisticians, anybody who has to take the pulse of the environment and then takes a decision based on that, the response requires a new way to look at data and to look at information in general. So we used to have data and data experts and people who are experts of specific disciplines, etc. It is impossible to have experts that are experts of the different kinds of expertises as well, so they are able to join the different knowledge of different experts together. And the problems have become so complex, like climate change, sustainability in general, and so urgent that we need a shift of paradigm in the ways we used to accumulate, serve, and peruse that knowledge. So areas and areas for SIA, in at least what we are trying to build at BC3, are an attempt to make sure that different expertises can work together without having to talk to each other. And by that, we teach machines how to talk the language of the different expertises, so that each individual expert can build its own carefully curated piece of knowledge, and the machine can be in charge of connecting those pieces of knowledge to address higher level questions that at this point have become so complex and so urgent that it's very hard for even a team of experts to address. And also the issue of respecting the local complexity of problems without abstracting them to the point that you basically remove their nature. And the ability of respecting the fact that there are data and knowledge that are missing all the time, and the expertise may not be enough to realize that there are other factors that intervene. So you have the three experts, but you don't have the fourth, and nobody knows that the fourth expert is actually what is needed to solve a particular problem. Now, I took it in very general terms, and I need to be brief. Areas is a semantic infrastructure that allows to tag each data set or each model, each single equation, each small piece of knowledge with its meaning, so that the machine has the means to connect all these different components. And there is for SIA is our offer to the statistical community, and particularly to the SIA community, of these technologies, so that we can build models that respect the complexity of the system, without, by this, creating models that don't talk to each other, and creating indicators that don't comply with the fundamental statistical frameworks that we need to respect in order for things to be comparable.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, Ferdinando, on the quite complex matter and trying to explain this in general terms. I know I had few requests of going last, but there only one person who can go last. I would like to go to Guha, as I mentioned, principal scientist working for Google.org and working with us at the UN on a project called UN Data Commons. And the reason I'm going to you guys is because it relates to what Ferdinando just said.
Sure.
It's like, how can you build, from a technology perspective, what are the opportunities for data commons to provide enhancing data accessibility and integrations? What kind of examples of successful initiatives do you have at Google.org? And also, what motivates Google to work in this space?
Sure. Just a small piece of correction. I don't work for Google.org, which is a nonprofit. I work for Google Inc., which happens to make a profit. Okay. So let's consider the sustainability example. You must have heard in the news that places in India crossed 50 degrees centigrade for a few days or a few hours in the last few weeks. how do you actually predict that? IPCC says 1.2 degrees and 1.8 degrees and so on. IPCC data is, it's open data. You have access to it. It's all very fair. Sure, go ahead. Download the 100,000 plus NetCDF files, which are come from 40 different organizations, have different kind of geometric layouts and so on. Somebody needs to integrate it all and make it all work together. This has happened before. In the late 90s, NASA made its Landsat imagery available to all who wanted it. Very few people could actually use it. What Google Maps did was did all the integration, did the hard work of putting it all together into a single view and presented it to users in a simple way, and that literally changed the way we look at the world around us. Now, in order to deal with the 50 degrees centigrade, you need to help people to adapt to that. It's going to happen a lot of times over and over again in the coming decades. You need data not just about the climate, you need data about health conditions, economic conditions, jobs, demographics, housing. It's beyond the scope of most governments, local governments, or even most national governments to do all of this thing, to put all this data together. And it requires data from the local census bureaus. It requires data from the UN, World Bank, OECD, and so many other people. So about 7 years ago, Google decided to bite the bullet and actually do the work, and we've invested a substantial amount of resources in actually building it. Google has done this kind of organize and information and make it easily accessible for web pages, images, shopping, maps, and we're doing it today for data. Except this data is essential to facing the biggest challenges of this century. Everything from pandemics to climate change to whatever else. And so we decided to make this open. Open meaning the entire software stack is open, which is why we are able to work with you. Mm-hmm. Open meaning all the data that we have put together is open, and you can add to it, layer it, take whatever you want from it, do all kinds of things. The APIs, everything is open, so when you want to have a different kind of presentation, you can do it. And we're also piping this into not just our own, but all the other open generator models and so on and so forth, so that there is a common way of doing this. That's all we've been doing, and we've had, as I said, partnerships are an incredibly important part of it, and we're so proud to have the UN at last year's UNGA. We launched the UN SDGs. Since then, we've done WHO, ILO, and there's others coming. And there's a whole bunch of other entities like Feeding America, One.org, a whole bunch of universities, Stanford, Berkeley, and so on, who are using it. So the whole idea is that, when do we know we've succeeded? We've succeeded when, without talking to us, the data that OECD, you, Haishan, ILO, AFDB can all be put together by some student in Bangladesh, and it just works. Mm-hmm. That's when we know we've succeeded.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for the vision, for the kind of things that we want to work to, and the kind of opportunities that we nowadays have to actually bring those things together. We have the technology. I also think we have the willingness to go that way.
I didn't answer one important question you asked, which is, why is Google doing this?
Yes.
We look in the mirror, and this is what we'd like to be see ourselves as doing. Our core mission statement is organize the world's information, and data is at the core of so much of our world's information. We're also doing it because this promotes an open web, open ecosystems, right? And Google's business model is such that open ecosystems are good for us. When people look to the open web to find answers, to start doing things, it's good for us. This is just in our genes. It's just what we need to be doing in order to be true to ourselves.
Thank you. Thank you, Guha. I turn to Osama. Osama, within the United Kingdom, so within government, I know that Data Science Campus has been asked to do a lot of things to bring communities of data together at the national level. So how do you see the role of the data science campus in relation to data commons or knowledge commons? And how can that be leveraged to support data-driven decision-making in the public sector?
Thank you. First of all, can I apologize for the gunged upness? I had Mohammed visiting last week, and I had to take him to the countryside, and this is what happens when you take the city boy to the countryside. He ends up being ill. Right, okay, so I might be controversial. I think some people have heard me say that actually national statistical offices really need to become national statistical and data offices. Because because of the importance of data, but also the way citizens and policy makers interact with data has changed massively. And it's changed massively because of the increased availability of data, the increased amounts of data out there, and much better tools for accessing data. So even my 89-year-old father, he's used to having data at his fingertips on his mobile phone. And I can guarantee you he's neither data or tech savvy, but he uses, at a personal level, he does actually use this data to inform personal decisions he has to make. So, as Guha said, I mean, using data, particularly for massively important societal and policy issues, we need to make that data much more easily available and usable. Now, we have lots of data at the ONS, as every national statistical office does, but it's not always straightforward to access. You can access a lot of the published stuff by searching our website, but you know what? Don't use the search on the ONS website. Use Google search to find things on the ONS website, is the honest truth. But essentially what you're getting is web versions of our stats publications and some CSVs to download. So it's not particularly user-friendly. We've also got the Secure Research Service, which is there for micro-level data for academics access, and there's some other mechanisms for accessing data across government. So I've talked about where I think NSOs have to go in the future, becoming NSDOs. So our role in the data science campus is to help make the ONS the ONS of the future. So amongst the things we're doing is we're working to make our published data much more easily available through StatChat using retrieval augmented generation and LLMs. So it's private beta, output's looking good, but if you look at something like datacommons.org, I mean, we've got a long way to go still. Still a huge issue around just sorting out basic metadata, particularly on the administrative data, much better. Actually, that's just for sort of organizing the data. And there's kind of, when I talk to NSOs, people in NSOs, everyone wants to do the really flashy, techie stuff that's upfront. And then when you talk about the really important back-end stuff and sort of sorting out your data, everyone kind of gets a bit, yeah, that's a bit dull, but it's incredibly important. I think, also getting governments to invest more in just sorting out the basic data we have is incredibly important. And we're also beginning to look at how we can make other very large-scale data sets that we have access to, such as we have access to financial transactions data available in aggregative, safe ways. But all this requires culture change. And I think it requires culture change moving away from just being a producer of official statistics publications as they are. And I think it requires a culture change which is moving away from this belief that it's our data. And I find this strange coming into an NSO having been in other government departments. As a civil servant, a public servant, I don't view this as our, as in the NSO's data. I view this as public data that's incredibly important, that we have to make much more easily available in safe, non-disclosive ways. And so that kind of requires capability change, it requires technical change, it just requires a lot of change, but I think we are started on the road, and not just us, it's clear that other NSOs are also going in this journey, and I'm hopeful about the future that we will, we will be thinking very differently about how we should make data available and accessible to all.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for the positive outlook of where we're going, and that we have a journey ahead of us there. Haishan, I will go to you, and you will get the last word. Data for development is key to the work that you are doing at the World Bank. The World Bank report 2021 was about data for better lives, which actually emphasizes that the World Bank sees data also as a main driver for development. So what are the key issues you see for when you think about data for development, and how can that also help in this context of building data or knowledge commons? Please.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for letting me get my cheat sheet. It's not very coherent, I realized. But I do want to share with you why I'm so optimistic about this knowledge commons idea, and also the major challenges I think we'll have to work together to overcome in order to get there. I'm glad we're here talking about big data and official statistics in one breath. Because just as we speak, the UN has a whole expert group working on updating the system of national count. So in less than 10 months or less than 8 months, I think the UN Search Commission, all the countries will come together to review and possibly endorse this new updated system of national count. And in that, data has been for the first time being recognized as a productive asset. So I think in terms of economic accounting, the time of data has arrived, because data is really powering economic development and sustainable development. And big data is a major part of this productive assets. At the same time, this is big data in the WDR you mentioned is being referred to as the private intent data, since they're predominantly generated through the digital platform of private businesses. But at the same time, the report clearly stressed how fundamental public intent data are. That is predominantly data produced by government agencies in the form of official statistics, be it from census, be it administrative system, be it surveys, or so on and so forth. I think there's huge potential, as you mentioned, given the complexities of our world and the issues we really have to deal with. It's so important to maximize the value of both type of data. And the truth is, it's really when they're being integrated, we find the most new insight, actable intelligence, both in terms of targeting localized actions and solutions, but also in terms of understanding the broad mega trends globally and really come to terms with our common actions that are needed for the sustainable development. So this is also why in the WDR, we put forward this vision of integrated national data systems. We want to see both types of data being maximized in terms of their value through use and reuse and repurpose. At the same time, we need to have credible, dependable governance systems, so ensure the trust of how those data are being used. At the same time, we want the benefit of those data to be equally shared around the world. So this is why I think the knowledge commons, in my mind, is a practical, a strategic and pragmatic means for us to move towards this integrated data system. That is, data produced by private, public sectors, by civil society, academia, or whatever, could be flown into a common place and to be integrated to give us this new insight we desperately need to achieve the sustainable development. That's why I'm really very optimistic about this idea. But here comes the challenge. We are talking about this right in the middle of a fast evolving AI age. You know, you should all agree. Ever since the ChatGPT came about, you know, it's captured all our imaginations. We see that it has becoming a consumer technology that everybody can access and make use of. And it offers huge promises, but of course there are also risks we have to manage. But the issue is that in such an AI age, we're still facing persistent data divide around the world. There's still so many countries on the wrong side of this data divide, and also increasingly risk being on the losing side of this AI divide. Because there's still so many countries, low income or even middle income countries, could not really produce timely, reliably, the fundamental so-called public intent data we desperately need. At the same time, there's also data that are being produced are now being used because they're hard to deliver, to be discovered, hard to access, and also for political or technical reasons, they're now being made available. So this is the challenge we're facing, that how we overcome. At the same time, even for the data that are openly available, they might not be of the quality or have the metadata, metadata, as one of our keynote speakers stressed, to ensure our AI applications will be able to understand the data and make fair use of them. So those are the challenges we're facing, working towards this knowledge or data commons. What I'm seeing is that we really want to get this data commons as you have pioneered, or the broader knowledge commons, by not only have a really trustworthy, dependable technological platform, but also useful and trustworthy content. At the same time, to have the clear governance and transparent processes and rules, and at the same time, that could really give the users the fair warning if the content might not be compatible with each other and should be used with real caution. So this is where I think there's a huge possibility for public-private partnership, because we all know the big tech has the resources and the brains and the talent to help develop such a platform. At the same time, the data producers, be it public and private, need to really be supported to agree upon what is our common standard, what be the real justifiable format, and what are the metadata that should be associated and be must provided to allow such data integration through such data commons and knowledge commons. So that's why at the World Bank, we see such the following as our priorities. One, we need to scale up how we support our client countries, be it low income or middle income, to invest in the national data system towards this integrated version of it, and at the same time to support them to invest not only in the institutional regulatory side of things, but also the human capacity. And we also want to continue to expand the partnership with private companies to learn how to access and make use of their data and repurpose their data that generated through their business processes, so that we can allow this real potential of integrated public and private sector data to really yield intelligence and insight to allow us to manage the world's affairs and to improve livelihood and well-being. This is also why we have worked with many international organizations, be it IMF or regional development banks, and established this development data partnership with almost 30-some private companies. But it's only a start. We want to learn through this process and to know what is the best way forward to repurpose and use those data from private sector, so that we can also bring those lessons to countries, so that to support them to move towards this integrated national data system. So whatever the knowledge commons we're talking about and we pin so much hope on will become a reality. So that's what I think we're aiming for.
Thank you very much, Haishan. I think you worded it very well around the issues of this topic. I think what you could hear from this panel is that this is a very important topic. It will come also to the General Assembly at the UN in September. They will talk about this. Global Digital Compact, where data is just a really important part of the discussion. AI is very much part of the discussion. Generating knowledge is part of that. The other part I wanted to take away from this panel is that, first of all, there's optimism from all four of us, four panelists, and also to indicate that we have four different communities here. We got the private sector, we got the statistical community, the international agencies, and the research community. And those are exactly those communities that we like to bring together and work together. So if there is optimism and there's willingness to partner, I think there is a bright future ahead of us. And I would like to thank you for your contribution. As I mentioned from the start, we will continue the discussion even this week with our panelists in other sessions, and I hope to see you there also. So thank you very much to our panelists.